The Peaky Blinders movie is set to give a fitting conclusion to BBC's Peaky Blinders, which will likely involve main characters dying, especially considering how previous seasons set the tone for the crime series. Although it's unknown when the Peaky Blinders movie will release, it was revealed that the script is almost done, and shooting is scheduled to start at some point in 2023. This would put the release of the Peaky Blinders movie some time after that, which means that it won't hit the screens before late 2023 or even 2024. While Peaky Blinders Season 6 delivered closure on some storylines advanced in previous seasons, chiefly Michael Gray's Finn Cole, betrayal and revenge for Polly's Helen McCrory murder, it also left some loose ends purposely open. Characters established as villains like Oswald Mosley, Sam Claflin, or villain adjacent such as Gina Gray, Anya Taylor-Joy, in Season 5 didn't meet their ends in Peaky Blinders Season 6. Instead, their influence kept growing. The likes of Mosley, Gina Gray, and Gina's uncle Jack Nelson, James Fretcheville, will undoubtedly be back as antagonists to Tommy Shelby, Cillian Murphy, and the Shelby family more in general in the Peaky Blinders movie, setting up a thunderous end for the crime series. As Peaky Blinders Season 6 ended with Tommy securing his opium deal with Nelson but also realizing that he was falsely led to believe by his foe Mosley's allies that his death was impending, it's highly likely Tommy and the Peaky Blinders will have to face Mosley and the Nazi sympathizers. Whether that will bring Tommy to obtain his revenge remains to be seen, especially since Peaky Blinders Season 6 showed Tommy changing his mind about killing his traitorous doctor, setting Tommy up to be a character seen in a more positive light in the Peaky Blinders movie. Still, as Peaky Blinders was always supposed to tell a story ending on the eve of World War II and the Peaky Blinders movie will tell an untold story from that period, some central characters will likely die either in their fight against fascists or in pursuit of their business interests. Here are all the characters who could possibly die in the Peaky Blinders movie. Oswald Mosley. Sam Claflin's Mosley was introduced in Peaky Blinders Season 5 as an antagonist to Tommy, even though they begrudgingly started a collaboration. Following Season 5's foiled assassination attempt, Peaky Blinders Season 6 even saw Mosley's fascist party gaining traction and Mosley getting more involved in Tommy's affairs, as his meeting with Jack Nelson was instrumental for Tommy to be able to close the opium deal with Gina's uncle. Mosley is undoubtedly a much bigger foe by the end of Peaky Blinders Season 6 than he was at the beginning of Season 5, and the Peaky Blinders movie could potentially kill him off as a way for Tommy to dispose of him as his enemy. While plenty of Tommy's enemies ended up dead throughout Peaky Blinders, Mosley's death would be too disrupting, as Oswald Mosley existed in real life and was also politically influential in British national and international politics. The real Oswald Mosley didn't die until 1980, so making Claflin's Mosley die in the 1940s would change history too much for Peaky Blinders. The crime show took some artistic freedom with historical facts in the past. Indeed, Peaky Blinders history itself places the Birmingham gang as active from the 1890s to the 1910s rather than much further in the 20th century like Peaky Blinders shows. Still, Mosley's early death in the Peaky Blinders movie would have too big of an impact even in the show's fictional world, especially if the film plans to set up Peaky Blinders spin-offs. While Mosley's death could be potentially ruled out, that doesn't mean Tommy won't be able to vanquish his foe, maybe even with the help of a past secret ally who suggested doing whatever he could to defeat Mosley, Winston Churchill, Neil Maskell. Jack Nelson. While his specific goals were unclear except for his willingness to get to know European fascists in Peaky Blinders Season 6, Jack Nelson's proximity to both Mosley and his niece Gina Gray made him Tommy's enemy. His approval of Gina's plans to kill Arthur Shelby, Paul Anderson, further cemented him as the Shelby's enemy, especially as Gina's plans backfired and ended with her husband Michael killed. Considering Gina's affair with Mosley and Mosley's plan to let Tommy believe he was dying from a tuberculoma, it's highly likely that if they weren't already all in on the plan to let Tommy Shelby kill himself, they would definitely be his enemies in the Peaky Blinders movie, possibly even as a team. Although this could make them all the more likely to die, Jack Nelson's lone death could also be an option, especially as Peaky Blinders Season 6 established that Tommy's opium deal with Nelson's Boston gang went through. While Nelson being based on Joseph Kennedy Sr. could rule him out as Tommy's victim as the historical figure lived until 1969, it could also make his death much more likely. Unlike Oswald Mosley, who was an actual historical figure that existed, Nelson was only inspired by JFK's father, making his death as retaliation for what he attempted to do to the Shelbys possible, as killing him off wouldn't kill someone influential that really existed, but only a character inspired by a historical figure. Finn Shelby. Peaky Blinders Season 6 saw Finn, Harry Curtin, being shut off from the Shelby family as a result of him opposing Duke's Conrad Kahn entrance to it and Isaiah's Jordan Bolger rising through the ranks of the organization, and also for supporting Billy Grave, Emmett J. Scanlon, instead of his own family when the time came for him to be punished for betraying them. The Peaky Blinders movie could see him either come back to the Shelbys or be absent for the center of the action in order to set him up as an antagonist to Duke and Isaiah in a potential future Peaky Blinders spin-off. However, if Finn were to be welcomed back to the family and support Tommy in his fight, he could very much end up killed. After all, whatever Peaky Blinders' final fight will be, it'll most likely bring death to many central characters, not only for the time period it'll be set in but also considering how many people close to Tommy died as a result of Tommy's ambition throughout Peaky Blinders. Arthur Shelby. Despite always being central to Peaky Blinders as a character, Arthur's death was already foreshadowed in Peaky Blinders Season 6. While it didn't happen in Season 6, Arthur's struggles with substance abuse became even more central after already being present in Peaky Blinders Season 5 and worsened upon learning of Tommy's plans to live out his last days alone, far away from his whole family. While Tommy ended up not killing himself and figuring out his tuberculoma was all a ploy by Mosley, it's unlikely that Arthur's situation will have improved with time. In addition to his addiction, his death was also foreshadowed by Tommy's son pointing a toy gun at him and mimicking shooting him in Peaky Blinders Season 6, Episode 1. While a similar scene in Season 2 foreshadowed John Shelby's, Joe Cole, death in a hail of bullets in Season 4, at the time, Arthur mimicked answering to fire. Dissimilarly, Arthur didn't in Season 6, choosing instead to mimic dying at the hand of Tommy's son, which could possibly foreshadow Arthur's death as being blamed on Tommy's actions, too. Tommy Shelby. Tommy's death has been discussed for as long as Peaky Blinders existed. Not only did Peaky Blinders' earlier seasons often imply that Tommy and his fellow soldiers that came back from World War I did so as shells of their former selves, but also the crime show proved how Tommy's reckless gambles to get himself and the Shelby family more power and influence often mirrored his little care for his life. Although he changed and evolved throughout 6 seasons, Peaky Blinders showed death always hanging over Tommy, with the seizures of Season 6, the persistent cough of Season 5, and his brushes with suicide in both seasons. While Peaky Blinders Season 6 ended with Tommy's symbolic funeral after he decided to spare Drive Holford, Aneurin Barnard, despite his betrayal, meaning he could potentially have a shot at redeeming himself in the Peaky Blinders movie, it's unlikely that his story will have a happy ending with Tommy alive. besides all the hints of Tommy's eventual death. Tommy being alive and well at the end of the Peaky Blinders movie could also potentially overshadow Peaky Blinders spin-offs, as his presence would always remind the public of the original Peaky Blinders, instead of offering new characters a chance at telling different stories. A redeeming ending for Tommy Shelby could nevertheless be possible if the Peaky Blinders movie lets him sacrifice for a better future for his constituents and his remaining family. In this scenario, while ending up dead, Tommy would have still managed to redeem himself and distance himself from the low-life criminal he was in Peaky Blinders Season 1.